You're listening to the Astrology Hub podcast, practical wisdom for living your life on purpose. Hi there, my name is Amanda Poole-Walsh and I'm the founder of Astrology Hub, and I am here today with Donna Woodwell, who is the senior editor and our resident astrologer here at Astrology Hub. And we have a really exciting episode planned for you today. We're going to be introducing you to an incredible astrologer, Jennifer Racioppi. She is our next lunar cycle guide for the Inner Circle membership group that we have. And we focused a lot on the lunar cycles and why tuning into the lunar cycles and working with them can help with a whole host of issues in your life, including physical issues and even things like depression and feeling withdrawn or hopeless or lonely. So many different avenues that we went down. So just a little bit about Jennifer before we introduce you to the episode. She's an integrative health coach and a registered yoga teacher who blends her expertise in astrology, positive psychology, and women's health to coach high-achieving female entrepreneurs reaching their next level of success. Her unique philosophy, rooted in what she has coined lunar logic, integrates the deep wisdom of both science, spirituality, and the cycles of the moon to help women build a foundation of resilience, step into their authentic selves, and stay faithful to their dreams. Her motto is, "Success isn't a race, it's a rhythm." Jen's also a resident expert in astrology for Well and Good and Kate Northrup's Origin platform. She also writes for The Numinous and is a sought-after speaker. And Donna, I would love to hear from you. What was your favorite part of this conversation that we had with Jennifer?
Oh, I found Jennifer so inspiring. And, that means a lot coming from me because I have been hanging out with astrologers for 25 years. And I really think she was one of the most, she made me feel so much light in my own being, just listening to her. And I'm so inspired by her own personal story that I can't imagine that our listeners won't feel that same deep sense of connection and compassion. So I was proud to be an astrologer just by listening to her.
I can totally relate with what you're saying, and I know that the audience is going to as well. One of the things I love about Jennifer and felt this immediately when I met her is that she is such a unique combination of really down-to-earth practicality and charisma. So she just, like you said, that spark, that inspiration, she has it. And then she's so eloquent, the way that she speaks and the way that she talks about astrology and in a way that, like you said, can make all of you out there proud that you tune into astrology, that you've made astrology a part of your life. This is also a great episode to share with anyone in your life who's kind of a skeptic, but open enough, because she really addresses it in terms and language that anybody could understand. And also she brings a lot of science to the conversation, which I know there's a lot of people out there who really need to connect with new ideas from that perspective. So we hope that you enjoy this conversation as much as we did, and we will connect with you again right after. Jennifer, it is so wonderful to be here with you today. I will never forget the day that I received a text from one of our A-Team angels, and she said, "Amanda, I just heard this astrologer on this other podcast. You need to listen, and we need to get her for Astrology Hub as soon as possible." And so I tuned into the other podcast, and I heard you, and I heard your story, and I heard the way that you talk about astrology, and I was like, yes. It was one of those full body, 100%, yes, I love this girl. So it is such an honor to have you here with us today. And I would love to give our audience the pleasure of hearing the same story that I heard about your journey to astrology, what brought you to astrology, and why you're so passionate about it today.
Well, thank you so much. It's a huge honor to be here, and I'll never forget when I got your email and it was from you. You wanted to talk, and I was like, oh, wow, okay. So the feeling was mutual. I had been following you guys because I saw that you had launched Astrology Hub with a focus on lunar rhythms. And lunar rhythms are so near and dear to my heart. I am an astrologer. I'm also a women's health coach. And I came to this work on kind of a journey of disaster. And I love learning more about lunar rhythms. I love teaching lunar rhythms. And I actually think lunar rhythms are such a valuable educational opportunity for all of us, regardless of our gender, to live more in sync with rhythmicity and the cycles of fertility and the cosmos. So thank you for doing your work and inviting me here. Yeah, to circle back to the story. So my story, like I said, started with a little bit of a health crisis. I grew up kind of with a dysfunctional relationship to my reproductive cycle. So when I started my period or my menstrual cycle, I was pretty young, and it quickly turned into a bit of a hormonal roller coaster and a disaster. And I spent much of my teen years trying to find answers as to why my body felt so out of sync, why I had a really hard experience with my reproductive health. And I would go to doctor after doctor, and they'd all say like, hey, you're normal, a normal teenager with normal, abnormal hormonal rhythms, here's the pill. And so that was pretty much my high school experience, just surviving otherwise, quote unquote, normal hormonal dysfunction. And that went on until I was right out of high school. I had just graduated high school, and the worst pain I'd ever felt in my entire life literally came over my body. I fell to the floor, crawled to the phone, and dialed 911. And got myself an ambulance ride to the hospital, where I later discovered that there was a tumor the size of a bowling ball erupting in my left ovary. That launched me on a very scary, frightening cancer journey, which lasted about 2 years in total, and ended with a radical hysterectomy, which, for those of you who don't know, is it's a surgical removal of 2 ovaries, fallopian tube, cervix, uterus, and launched me into menopause. And I was 19 years old. So I had what they refer to in the medical world like parachute menopause, which is to say, not only did I skip a healthy 30 years of healthy reproductive years, but my entrance into menopause was overnight, which is not normal. Normally, menopause happens over a series of years, known as your perimenopausal years, which can take, sometimes 10, 13, 14 years before you're technically 1 whole year past your last period. And so here I was, a teenager, just expedited on this journey. And while this surgery certainly saved my life, and, I'm 20 years cancer-free, since then, I'm also 20 years postmenopausal, and it's been a crazy journey. So after, my cancer was quote unquote healed, my emotional state snowballed into anxiety, depression. I had panic attacks, quite on the reg. And, of course, the medical establishment met my issues with, psychiatry, so now I had gone from the pill into antidepressants, and it just felt like life was suffocating me, and I didn't know how to get off this crazy ride. So I'm a Gemini and I love to travel. And I took to the road to really find some answers. This was in the late 90s, so we didn't really have internet or social media. We certainly didn't have social media, and I had just gotten an email address. So there weren't a lot of great, robust online resources like we have now. So my journey really meant travel and seeking and showing up to places. And it was 2001, late spring. I had just spent the winter teaching ski lessons in Lake Tahoe. And I stumbled into a metaphysical bookstore and noticed that there was a tarot reader in the back who was this fascinating woman. And I had a tarot card reading with her. And those moments where someone through the lens of divination just delivers a truth that's like so deep in the soul. And that's what she did. She laid out my cards, and she's like, basically, I see 2 paths. One is you've been sick, you'll get sick again, and the sickness never goes away. I'm paraphrasing, of course. And then the other, she says, is like this journey where you learn how to embrace what she called as like the feminine, and prioritize true heart's desires and take bigger risks, and really learn how to live in sync with the cosmos. And I was just like blown away, had no idea who this woman was, but what she said just rang so true. And so that started a relationship that went on a pretty intense mentorship for probably about 2 years. And it turns out that this woman took me through learning ritual practices that have been in her family for generations and generations and generations. And it was all about learning how to cycle with the phases of the moon. So what does that mean? Setting intentions with new moons, really honoring full moons, starting to really chart and see how the moon's rhythms impacted my life, my happiness, my well-being, really tuning into the moon's rhythms as a way to not only expedite my healing, but expedite my sovereignty as a woman, so that I could start to learn how to make and manage money and rent apartments and put myself in the conditions for my health and success, which all required material things. And learning how to work in sync with the lunar rhythms will actually help me so much. And what I learned is that the moon cycle, from the new to the waxing to the full to the waning back again, is the same cycle as the female reproductive hormonal rhythms that begins with a menstrual cycle into a waxing phase known as the follicular phase, into an ovulatory phase, which is very much synonymous with the full moon, through a waning phase known as the luteal phase. And I haven't missed a moon cycle since. And the beautiful thing about the moon is that the moon's always on time. So the moon's never late. We know when it's coming. And so that started my journey. That was 2001 that I took that on in all earnest. And then, as astrology goes, I started not just wanting to know about the phases of the moon. I wanted to know about the signs of the moon. I wanted to know about the other aspects impacting the moon. I wanted to know about all the other planets. And I almost liken it to like when someone loses a sense, touch or the ability to see or hear, we compensate in other ways, so a blind person will learn how to read Braille. Well, as a very premature postmenopausal 20-something, I learned how to read the stars. And that became how I found my way. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, hearing it again, it is just as riveting, Jennifer. Thank you so much for sharing. And what a beautiful hero's journey that you've been on, because now you share this wisdom with other women. And I'm sure helping lots of young teenagers navigate a really confusing part of life. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you see happen for women and men? Do you work with men as well, or mainly just women?
I wouldn't say I don't work with men. Actually, my next client's a man, but primarily women. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you see happen in people's lives when they start to connect in with the lunar cycle?
It's just so interesting because it can really range from what they're coming to it for. Right now, it's a very big topic. I mean, it's trending so far and so wide that what I'm finding is that the health and wellness space has just evolved at such rapid speeds that first it began with like a really strong yoga trend, which led to like a green juicing trend, which, all of these things. And now people are just so sensitive because in the wellness world, we've been working on detoxing and aligning and connecting and feeling and opening. And so now there's like, oh yeah, like there's this cosmic thing happening. So mostly I would just say it connects people to the sense of like, oh my God, I'm connected. The universe is alive and I'm a part of it. And I have an inner cosmos. There's an outer cosmos. The inner cosmos and the outer cosmos are talking. And like, that is like really intriguing, as I'm sure you guys see with your work, right?
Absolutely. It is one of the biggest joys is watching people make that connection. That connection alone is life-changing. To go from feeling like you're here, it's kind of pointless, you're not really connected to anything or anyone around you, to, oh my God, it's alive, it's magical, I'm connected to all of it, it's talking to me, I can work with it. Like, that's huge and literally life-changing. It's happened in my own life. I've seen it happen for so many of our community members as well.
Oh, absolutely. I just want to say, Jennifer, Namaste, the divine within me smiles and winks at the divine with you. I feel like we're soul sisters here, connecting for the first time on this podcast. But yes, and I never really thought about it until you said this, Jennifer, that so much has been going on the physical level with people going to yoga and going to organic foods and all these things that clean out our body, that there was a natural repercussion of that to make us more sensible to these more nuanced vibrations. So, of course, eventually people will start turning into what's happening in the sky. And of course, the moon is the biggest, closest, brightest thing that if we're going to tune into something first, it's going to be the moon. So thank you for that, because you just made all the light bulbs go off in my head. So I'm sure it's doing the same for the people who are listening in.
Well, what's interesting is both Donna and I and you, Jennifer, all three of us have had our opening happen through the physical body. Mine was literally through, feeling so gross in my body after having my first daughter and looking for answers and then finding detoxing and green juice and all those things you just talked about. And then starting to be able to feel something for the first time and realizing there is more to the story. And I know Donna's was a physical journey as well. So
I had terrible, terrible allergies that made it so I was rejecting any food I put in my mouth. Mm-hmm. And I went on my own shamanic journey to find healing in that process. And, astrology came across my path as, oh, I know this language.
This is a little bit of a sidebar, but I think it's connected in somehow because we're having this conversation around organic foods and reproduction and fertility. I just have to say it. I was listening to Coast the other day, and there was a doctor on there who has done a movie. Gosh, I wish I could remember the name, but it's one of the studies that they show in the movie is there were 92 couples who could not get pregnant. And they tried in vitro and all kinds of different fertility roads they'd gone down, to have the babies. And they changed their diet to 100% organic, and 100% of the couples got pregnant. 100% out of 92, which is just amazing. But I think what it shows is, and even in our stories, is that there is this gateway to the other side, to the divine, to the magic, to even our co-creative abilities through the physical body.
Yeah.
It's a conduit.
We are stars, right? Like we are stardust. I'm researching this right now and I'm just trying to find I love evidence-based science, and I know that astrology is not like a theoretical evidence-based system, which I love because I don't think it needs to be. There's so much anecdotal evidence out there. But I also love looking at the peer-reviewed science that accompanies this. And we are literally stardust, organic matter is the same material of stars, right? And when we can make that connection, it's of course, it's a hard connection to make because it almost doesn't make sense, but we're looking at hydrogen. The components that make us up come from somewhere. And it's the same components that are in furnaces of burning stars. So it's really interesting. And then if we also look at the medical astrology component as to where the zodiac lives in our body and how our body relates to the zodiac, there's a lot of other connections as well. So that might be a little heady, the moon's a much simpler place to access this. And I think also the other thing that the moon does is that, the moon is our scout. It's our satellite. It provides our gravity. It rises the tides. We're 70 some odd % water. So if the moon can move the ocean, the moon likely has an impact on our physicality. I always say to people, track it and see. Don't take me at my word. Experiment. I love evidence-based science. So create your own rituals of tracking and seeing. But I haven't found one client through all these years, and I've had the privilege of really working with thousands of women, who hasn't had some profound connection around opening her mind to understanding that there's an inner cosmos inside of her that's sacred and holy, that is so deeply not only impacted, but belongs to the outer cosmos. And I think that as women, when through patriarchy and religion, I don't know about you guys, but in my experience, women undergo a lot of shame, we're not necessarily represented in religion, and we're not necessarily, our bodies are dirty, and all these habitual teachings maybe we've inherited through the years. and to take a step back and understand that we're actually, the cosmos live inside of us and we belong to the universe, just raises the bar for so many.
It really does. It really does. And it's reminding me, Jennifer, my daughters go to a Waldorf school here on Maui, and the curriculum in third grade is around the Old Testament. And I one day went into Madeline, my daughter's teacher, and I said, all the stories of the heroes and like the people that you're like, yes, that you're rooting for in the Bible, at least from my perspective, I had 13 years of Catholic school. It's pretty much all about men. I'm just wondering if you will be highlighting any of the women that have really epic stories that just don't get highlighted very much. And he amazingly is just this incredible man. He was so grateful that I brought it to his attention, and he literally found books and stories about the women of that time and told the children. I said, do you understand what that does for the little girls, for the young girls? Now they have someone to relate to. Now they have someone to realize their greatness through, and those stories are so powerful. And so, yeah, you're right on. We little girls growing up, ourselves included, do not see those stories. We don't hear those stories. We don't see those heroes. It's changing. There's things that are actually shifting that, but traditionally that has been the case. So yeah, that one simple switch of like, oh wow, I'm connected, there's something bigger here is huge. We are so honored to be having you as one of our inner circle guides for the upcoming lunar cycle, starting with the new moon. And you have chosen a theme for the inner circle members, which is leap into the new year with integrity. Can you tell us why you selected that theme for the upcoming lunar cycle?
Sure. Well, there's so many reasons. When you pick up a theme for a group and really tune into the zeitgeist of what the new year is. But as we step into 2019, I really think 2018 was just such an intense year with so many inner planet retrograde cycles, and our eclipse seasons were really intense. And there's just a number of reasons why 2018 I think was challenging. And I think 2020 is another year where it's a really, really, really loaded year for a lot of reasons. So I keep thinking that 2019 is when you're sequencing in yoga, you do a lot of really intense forward bends and a lot of really intense back bends, but in between the two, you have to neutralize. You can't just go from forward bends to back bends. And I see 2018 as a year where we did so much surrender and so much release with the inner planets retrograde, and 2020 with some really interesting Capricorn activity coming up. There's going to be, I think, a lot of back bending. And so I almost think this year with, as we step into it, there's a lot of neutralization happening, and integrity for me is the most neutralizing force there is, right? There's also the Saturn in Capricorn conjoining the sun as the year starts. So Saturn's our taskmaster. He's our school disciplinarian. He's our life coach. He's so many things, but what he really is an integrity, conductor of sorts. And that's how the year kicks off, with Saturn on the sun. And then, of course, we have our first eclipse of the year at 15 degrees of Capricorn, which is a solar eclipse. For those of you who are just learning, a solar eclipse is a new moon. So that's when the sun and the moon align at the same degree at the sky, but it's an eclipse. So it's an extra potent lunation that has incredible strength. And this particular new moon happens, like if we imagine the sun and the moon as the meat, it's in between a sandwich of Saturn and Pluto, which is, for those of you who know astrology, an intense sandwich. But for those of you who are just learning, let's just say it's rich. And eclipses trigger 19-year cycles, depending on which cycle you look at, but a 19-year cycle. And how wonderful to kick off the new year, to kick off and wrap up a 19-year cycle with the focus being on integrity. So that's why I chose it.
Jennifer, there's a lot of different connotations with the word integrity. When you use that word, what are you alluding to?
Mm-hmm. I look at it as alignment with truth, alignment with self, like being what you say, be, and do. I don't even know if that's good English, but there's a thread that connects them all. So looking at making choices based on who you are, not who you need to be. And so often when we think about a new year, we think about a new year and a new you and crushing goals. And, like all these things come up around like, I'm getting this and I'm doing that and I'm doing this. And it's like at the end of by the time the sun moves into Aquarius, maybe none of that matters anymore. But why? Did it really matter to begin with? Where did those goals come from? Were they goals that you thought you needed to achieve to be seen, worthy, accepted? Were they goals that, someone else told you, it might have been good for you, conditioning and programming? Or did they come from the truth of who you are? And I think integrity means bowing to that inner guru, that inner voice, and showing up for it. There's a quote. So, Donna, I love your work too, because you touch on positive psychology and so many interesting components. So I too am a student of positive psychology, and I studied very deeply with a man named Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar, and we went deep into leadership studies. And there was a book called On Becoming a Leader by Warren Bennis, where he talks a lot about how leadership is knowing who you are and being who you are. And astrology is a shortcut to knowing who you are and being who you are. And I think knowing who you are and being who you are is what integrity is made of.
I like this woman.
I know. Me too. You see why I loved her. I fell in love with her right away. Okay.
Right back at you, ladies. This is fun.
I want to have her over in my house for tea and my 1,800 books. And we could just sit there and have days of, hey, what about this? And hey, what about that?
Totally.
When you talk about Saturn and integrity, I think one of the amazing things about astrology is that, it's all about polarity. And it's the exploration of polarity in so many different forms, because that's what rhythm is. It's move to this side, move to that side, move to this side, move to that side. And with each movement, we kind of spiral around and get to see something from two different perspectives. And so when we talk about Saturn being integrity and being in alignment, it has a partner, which is Jupiter, which is also about being integrity and in alignment. It's just that their focus is in a slightly different direction. Saturn's kind of integrity pulls us down and focuses on the present moment. It helps us be mindful and what it means to be physical and deal with the consequences of being physical. Jupiter's kind of integrity raises us up and helps us look at the larger patterns and things that are around us in order to give us a sense of transcendence or surpassing our small little lives. And so while Jupiter pulls us up into alignment with something greater, Saturn pulls us down but keeps us connected. And so it's working on that vertical dimension, the two points of it. And so when you really get into astrology at a level where you start embodying it, you realize, oh, these are just like levers that I can use in my own life. And if I can switch it up when I need it, and I can pull it down when I need it, and all of a sudden you have more capacity to live the life you want because you know how the etheric system that you're made of actually functions.
I always say Jupiter. I love Jupiter. I'm actually thinking about getting a tattoo of Jupiter during this lunar cycle, so I'll keep you posted. But Jupiter expands us to the extent that we've done our Saturn, right? Jupiter, when we have auspicious Jupiter transits, what I've seen, having studied this, is well, where's Jupiter in your chart? There's so many nuances to how much Jupiter is going to expand you. But one of the things is, have you done your Saturn, right? So Jupiter expands us to the extent that we've done the preparation. Oprah has this quote that says, luck is doing everything you can, doing as much as you can, and then letting it go. And if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. It's luck is preparation, meeting opportunity. And I kind of think the same of Jupiter and Saturn. I also think that it's interesting that there are inner outer planets, right? So there are inner outers. They rule our consciousness. So I love our social consciousness. I love that analogy of polarity. And as we know, going into 2019, both Jupiter and Saturn are in signs that they love. And in this upcoming month, we're going to have some really intense Saturn transits, and we're going to have some really wonderful Jupiter transits. And so there'll be that rhythm. Said so well. Thank you so much for that.
And then, as you mentioned, 2020, next year they'll be meeting each other.
Yep.
the beginning of Aquarius. So what do you think the meeting of these two energies will bring for all of us?
I'm so curious because it also happens with Saturn meeting Pluto, and it happens with Mars coming in, and it happens with Saturn scooting into Aquarius and then coming back to Capricorn. And there is just so much to say about it. I often think astrology is kind of a little bit of fate and destiny colliding with a choose your own adventure. And, and like we have free will. And we kind of make some decisions along the way, and then we do it in sync with the cosmos. And yeah. So I think we collectively have to make some decisions, like around what we're doing with our environment and our politics and the businesses and the way corporations are operating on this planet, rules and regs, Capricorn. And what will happen when these two social consciousness planets come together at, 24 degrees of Capricorn, right around there, like the end of the Capricorn journey, which is, we all know when, I'm not going to curse, so I'll say when stuff gets real, when things get real. So I think that I'm hopeful that it's a total new beginning for how we're relating to governance and our rules and regs when it applies to being keepers of our planet. And there's a part of me that's, scared for a continued abuse of power in ways that are assaulting to our planet. That's my honest answer. How about you guys? What do you think?
Well, like you, I'm very curious, and I have the very special honor of listening to lots and lots of different astrologers. And one of the things that I've taken away is that 2020 is potentially like the opportunity for an entirely new way of doing things to actually start happening. So instead of us talking about it, thinking about it, wanting it, we actually can start taking the steps towards doing it. The other thing that I've taken away from all the astrologers is that 2019 is a very large opportunity for us to really do what you're prompting us to do at the beginning of this new year, is get clear about what we actually value and what we actually want to create in the world. And maybe it won't come to fruition in 2019, but we're setting the foundation. We're actually we're doing that really necessary roots level work so that what we do grow and build will have deep roots in the soil. Mm-hmm. So that's what I've taken away as my little synopsis. And there is that like a little sense of trepidation, kind of like, ooh, there's definitely opportunity, and oh my gosh, things could get a little chaotic. Like things could get weird. So that's the other part of it. What about you, Donna?
The astrological name for Jupiter and Saturn when they come together every 20 years is called a great conjunction. And in a way, I mean, especially in the United States, but you can see it in other countries too, there really has been in the last cycle a great rift. We're pulling ourselves apart, based on our inability to embrace diversity in some ways. We've invented bad guys to battle against. And so when these two planets come back together again, it really has to, bring us to the awareness that we've got one planet, and, we can continue to fight amongst ourselves and squabble and watch the planet sink, or we can come together and in compassion and respect and tolerance for all the other voices to find a way through. And I really do think that a great conjunction is a moment to have that conversation in a new way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then what we learn, right, to piggyback that off of like what we're doing here in Astrology Hub is studying the lunar cycle, and why that's such a great tool to start to learn astrology is that, like the new moon, we'll have this great conjunction, and then we'll have an opening square, and then we'll have an opposition, and then we'll have a closing square, and we'll have another great conjunction. And it's just a different cycle, but same schemata, if you will, of the lunar cycle. And to your point, Amanda, around sometimes we work really hard, we don't see the fruition right away. It takes time, much like changing our lives by working with the lunar cycles. It's not by like the full moon we see everything different. You know, oftentimes it's a 2.25 year cycle, or it's a metonic cycle, or there's these larger cycles at play that we see the change. But what I've come to really revere in my own practice is the idea of being so clear at those moments when we do have these cosmic opportunities of what I most want to see, and then backing it up with the action and the choices and the spiritual practices, so that over these longer journeys, right, over this next 20-year journey, what we see at the waxing square, or, you know, like the whatever, the opening square, is connected to that intention that's so pure at the time we set it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And it's one of the reasons why I'm so excited that we're kicking off the new year with you in the inner circle, and that we're going to have this opportunity to come together as a group and really get clear on our intentions. Donna and I have been spending a lot of time on this. If you missed episode 005, please check it out, you guys, because in that, Donna and I use an astrological process to help you get clear on your intentions for the year. And we walk you through the different seasons of the year so that you can focus on astrologically supported times to set your intentions. So check that out if you haven't already. And if you have the opportunity to jump into the inner circle, now would be a great time to do it, to kick off this lunar cycle and the new year with Jennifer Racioppi as our guide. If you are not sure what I'm talking about, you can check out the link in the show notes that will bring you to the inner circle and give you some more details about what we do there. Jennifer, we're also going to be doing a mastery class training with you on electional astrology. I feel personally that electional astrology is such an unclear name. I think astrology suffers from it has a marketing issue, because so many of the things, no one would connect with that. What's electional astrology? When Donna first said it, I thought it had something to do with elections. Electional astrology, with predicting elections, maybe. So tell us what electional astrology is and why you think it's so important for our inner circle to learn about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, electional astrology is one of the main branches of astrology. So we have mundane astrology, which is
another ill-named.
Yes.
Who wants to do mundane astrology? Sounds awful.
It sounds awful, but on some level, we could almost be talking about mundane astrology when we're talking about the Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter conjunction, because we're like, what's going to happen to our nations and our businesses and our organizations? And that's mundane, where we look at the non-personal, we look at the collective, and that's really how astrology started. Right. And then there was this segue into, and I'm unclear what came first, but there was a segue into, if we're going to look at what's happening in the cosmos as indicative of like a weather report of what we can expect for our society, what if we started doing things in sync with the cosmos on purpose to get the best results? And that's electional astrology. So I'll say more about that in a moment. But then, then we moved into natal, and I don't know what came first, but something like that. Then natal astrology is when we look at our individual birth charts, right? So our individual birth charts are natal astrology. That's where most of us spend the most amount of time. It's our horoscopic astrology, where we're looking at 12 houses and we're relating it to self. But every time we launch a business, every time we right now, this recording has a chart, right? And astrology, as above, so below. And when we start things is just so important, because that casts a chart for the lifespan of what that thing is. So in my business, my tagline is called Chart Your Success. And I spend a lot of time helping people auspicate their lives by choosing times where things are most auspicious to be done. Much like you're saying with your podcast, which I can't wait to listen to, that you guys went through the year and you probably gave somewhat of an electional astrology overview around these are the seasons and how to work with them. And this is when this is a good time, or, I haven't heard it yet, but I'm assuming that there's some sense of timing your life to the cosmos in essence, that's what electional astrology is. People really like, think about it, it's like electing a day on purpose. So when I got married, I couldn't do it for myself. So I spent hours, literally, with an astrologer, and we looked at all different complexities and nuances of choices. And I didn't have the best possible day by a long shot, but I had the best day based on what was available. And that's life. If we're just waiting for everything in the cosmos to align for us to launch the business or ask the person to marry us or whatever it is that's so near and dear to our heart, we may be waiting a really long time. So electional astrology is basically a science of discernment, where we look at what's happening in the cosmos, and then we learn how to discern for ourselves and think like astrologers around what that means. So it's almost like baking a recipe. Like, do I want a bit more sugar? Do I want a bit more salt? Do I need more acid? Do I need more whatever? And so that's what I'm hoping to really empower people with, is that after we align with our truth and we know we want to do X, Y, and Z, how do we start to use astrology as a planning tool for ourselves, so we know that we're looking for these seasons or these times to initiate.
So you're going to be giving the Inner Circle members some tools to actually start doing that. And it's the perfect time at the beginning of the year, as everybody's looking at the year and thinking about what they want to do and accomplish. I love it. That's really the co-creative aspect that we talk about. There's the energy, and then there's you and how you respond to the energy, and then there's the choice. And so there's, this interplay or dance that we're in with the universe. And when we actively participate in it, that's when we feel the magic.
Yep. We are the cosmos. The cosmos are us. And I just think it's so cool to live in sync with those rhythms as much as we can. And one of my colleagues calls it forward vector motion. It's like when you sync into a cycle that's rolling, there's like less effort, so we get the opportunity of forward vector motion.
So I just have to give you all a couple opportunities. If you want to take some of the topics that we've talked about today further, you actually have opportunities to do that both with Jennifer and with Donna. So if you would like to join in on starting the new year with Jennifer as our lunar cycle guide for the Inner Circle, you can jump into the Inner Circle now. If you want to just start working with the moon cycles, if you're curious about that, if you want to take it a little bit further, we do have a course called Moon Magic that Donna actually taught for us. And I will also put the link to that in the show notes. And that will really help you start to work with the rhythms, start to actually chart your response to the rhythms. And if you're one of those people out there who loves to lead new and full moon circles, or maybe you want to lead them, there's lots of great ideas for how to actually create those ceremonies, what the different lunar cycles of the year mean, what to focus on at different times. So both of those things are available to you. If you'd like to hop in, we will put, again, the link in the show notes for you. Jennifer, it has been such a pleasure to spend this time with you. I wanted to give you one more opportunity to ask anything else to Jennifer before we sign off.
Does she have a fan club? Because I want to sign up for her fan club.
Well, right back at you. So I'm going to manifest us actually meeting in person and hanging out.
Perfect. Can I be there, you guys? All right. Very nice. Jennifer, thank you so much. We're so excited to be kicking off the new year with you, starting next week with the new moon. And for all of you out there, just sending you lots and lots of love. And thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. Please, if you're enjoying the show, make sure that you subscribe, rate, and review it. When you subscribe, you will get the benefit of knowing exactly when we post new episodes, which is Mondays for the forecast and Thursdays for the episodes, for the content episodes, but you'll actually get a pop-up on your phone, which is always really nice. And then to rate and review, thank you so much to everybody who's already done that. It's so amazing to see your feedback. It just fuels us, it keeps us going, and it's really, really exciting to connect with you that way. So thank you for everyone who's done it. If you haven't yet, please go in and do that. It really helps the show to reach lots and lots more people and to get the word of astrology out there. Astrology is suffering, like I said, from an there's an image issue with astrology. People have total misconceptions about it. And so it's just such a joy and an honor to be in this position to be able to help shed a lot of that and really shine the light on the truth of astrology, which is just brilliant and so helpful for people. So thank you again, everybody, and can't wait to see you on the next episode. All right. We hope that you enjoyed that as much as we did, and that you are taking away from that conversation some things that you can start to work with immediately. And we want to just thank Jennifer for just the amazing wisdom that she shared with all of us. And just a reminder to all of you to subscribe, rate, and review to the podcast if you haven't already. If you're enjoying the content, please continue to tune in. You are helping us to rank in the podcast ratings. We had a stint at number 9 in the religion and spirituality category, which is amazing. I mean, there's some incredible podcasts up there. So thank you for all the support. It's working, and we are so very grateful for every single one of the reviews that we get to read and for all of you who have subscribed. Also, next week, we are going to be featuring Giselle Terry. She is incredible. She's a psychotherapist and an astrologer, and the conversation that we had with her is just off the charts. And I know we're basically saying that every week, but it really is true. Giselle Terry's amazing. So tune into that episode. It's episode 007. It's coming next Thursday. And as always, make sure that you tune into the forecast that we will release on Monday. Donna will be sharing lots and lots of wisdom for how to start your new year off right. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for making astrology a part of your life. We'll catch you on the next episode. Planning a trip? Ready to buy a home or fall in love? Find out if this is the year for you to do it when you tune into Astrology Hub's 4th annual New Year Forecast Marathon, featuring 12 world-class astrologers as they reveal the most important energies of the year, month by month. Go to astrologyhub.com/forecast to reserve your free spot today. Again, go to astrologyhub.com/forecast to join the most comprehensive online New Year astrological forecast in the world today. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Astrology Hub podcast. We can't wait to continue exploring with you and bringing you astrology's most practical wisdom so you can live your life on purpose. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Hi, this is Chris Kaplan, the producer of the Astrology Hub podcast. This episode is over, but check the show notes for links to products and services you've heard about during this episode. And if you enjoyed our show, please subscribe and rate using the subscribe button wherever you listen to your podcasts.